So Scottie Pippen, he's back. Scottie Pippen. He's making the rounds over the last couple of days here as he attempts to get you to buy his memoir, his new book, and he's bouncing all over the place. Now, Pippen popped up on our radar several months ago, so you knew this was coming. Well, here it is, just in time for the Thanksgiving holiday in a few weeks. So the former Chicago Bulls star not holding back. And if you've not been following the story because you actually have a life and you don't pay attention to this kind of crap and you turn to idiots like me for it, I will give you the inside skinny. So among the more outrageous comments from former NBA player Scottie Pippen, Pippen talking to GQ magazine, it was recorded for posterity's sake, Pippen intimated that Michael Jordan was not a one-man band and pretty much said, what about us? What about everyone else on the Bulls and all the players? He got very upset as he ranted and raved. Here is Scottie Pippen, just to prove I'm not lying. Here is Pippen implying that Michael Jordan did not carry the Chicago Bulls to titles. As Warner Wolf would say, let's go to the audio tape.
I'm talking about the press who feels that Michael Jordan was carrying the Bulls in the 90s. Well, if my mind and my record is straight, Tony Kukoc is a Hall of Famer. Dennis Rodman is a Hall of Famer. Scottie Pippen is a Hall of Famer. And I expect somewhere down the road that Horace Grant will be a Hall of Famer.
All right. That was just the warm-up act, right? But wait, there's more. Pippen then went over to NBA radio, state-sponsored NBA radio there, at Sirius Satellite Radio with Frank Isola. Like Frank. Frank's a good guy. And anyway, Pippen did not hold back. He was talking about his play in the NBA Finals. He had a back injury, and he complained. He asked a rhetorical question. We'll play it for you here, but Pippen was complaining that he didn't get enough credit for playing with an injured spine in the NBA Finals against the Utah Jazz, and he compared it to one of Michael Jordan's most famous moments. But here's what Pippen had to say about the bad back.
I'm going to ask you this.
All right.
Is it easier to play with a herniated disc or to play with the flu?
They always say the worst injury to have is a bad back.
Well, I don't see many bad back games, but I do see flu games. Flu. Come on.
Come on now. All right, let us discuss. So, a question here. What do we love? What do we hate about the latest round of hot take theater from Scottie Pippen? So, my observations. You've got the Dragon, Geronimo, and Ed Sheeran. And we will lock all of these things together. Make the Baba Ganoush. We're going to make the Baba Ganoush. Now, number one. So I love the fact that Scottie Pippen is willing to do whatever it takes to sell books, right? Like, how much extra does he make? What's the dollar amount that Scottie gets to collect? And he's going around, he's got all these scores to settle, and he's doing it by selling you a book. The literary world needs more people committed, dedicated. Their life's work is to sell a book like Scottie. Now, they do say the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And so you got to go full whack-a-doodle to get attention, get publicity. Here I am. I am taking the bait, and I am dedicating a portion of valuable talk radio real estate here on FSR to Scottie Pippen because of his latest commentary. And I love the fact that he's, hey, listen, I'm willing to burn bridges. I'll kick down some ladders. I don't care about that. Scottie Pippen right now is flying in a plane across the Rubicon is what he's doing. Now, is this irreversible damage that is being done? Is there some kind of side deal where Jordan and Pippen are like laughing about this and Scottie is, hey, Michael, I got to say this stuff because I got to sell some books. I don't buy that. I don't buy that part of the story, that conspiracy theory. I think he's being the ultimate salesman here. And watching these interviews, and there was more, I only gave you a couple. He had some hot takes on the Golden State Warriors. He was ranting about the New York Knickerbockers. But Scottie has become like an ancient dragon, the legend of the fire-breathing dragon and his bad breath with the fire. over the NBA, but especially Michael Jordan. It's not just MJ, though. Anyone who gets in the path of Scottie Pippen while he's trying to sell a book is fair game and is likely going to be collateral damage. He's got his eye on the prize. His eye on the prize. Now, secondly, what do we hate? What I hate is the fact that Scottie Pippen's commentary, while most of it seems to be circling around Michael Jordan, because that's what gets attention, it is misdirected. It's like a Scud missile that misses the target, right? Scottie Pippen's main gripe, based on the sound bites that we've played for you and the other quotes I've seen from Scottie, his main problem is with the fourth estate, the media. He's been out of shape because the establishment media in the NBA in the 90s gave all the honey to Michael Jordan. There's no honey left. It all went to Jordan. His airness was the focus of a brilliant marketing effort by Nike and the NBA. They built a larger-than-life fairy tale. Now, listen, I buy into the fairy tale. I remember watching the Bulls in those days and watching Michael Jordan, and I bought into it. I still buy into it. So maybe I'm a sucker, but the storytellers of the day, they helped rhapsodize the myth, the legend of Michael Jordan. And he became this larger-than-life archangel of hoops, mythical character beyond reproach. And Scottie Pippen is learning a very important lesson from key figures. If you've studied the history in the Native American world, the figures that we learned in school, like Geronimo, Crazy Horse, Sitting Bull, all of those and others. There's an old Native American proverb that is still true, that those who tell stories rule the world. And the basketball media helped write the legend of Michael Jordan. And to this day, I mean, Michael Jordan, as far as to me, he's the greatest player I ever saw, and I think you'd be hard-pressed to find anyone better. But if you didn't watch Michael Jordan play, and maybe you weren't brainwashed by all the propaganda, you might feel different. But there's another saying that if you read or hear something enough, the same thing, like same dogma, sooner or later, you begin to believe it, right? What you hear and what you read, whether or not it's true or not. Now, in this case, I think it is true. But Scottie Pippen's anger, again, is at the storytellers in the media. Those who tell stories rule the world. And there's also another part of Scottie's story, which I believe is regrets. Like, Scottie did not massage the scribes enough. He didn't have the relationship that, Jordan, if you're old enough to remember, NBC had the NBA package in the 90s, the great John Tesh music from the NBA in those days. And Michael Jordan had his own personal toady, Ahmad Rashad, that was following around. Scottie Pippen should have sucked up to Ahmad Rashad more. Should have had somebody in the media that was championing Scottie Pippen. It didn't happen. So I think there's some regrets. He didn't massage the back of the media enough. And, it's the whole honey thing. You get more flies with honey than vinegar. Now, granted, the idea that even if Scottie Pippen had kissed the tuchus of certain prominent NBA media people back in the day, that would have changed things much. It's a futile effort, you would say. The media talked the talk about Michael Jordan, and Jordan walked the walk, or ran up and down the court and made very memorable plays in multiple key games. Now, final point. So let's address the sum and substance of the latest ranting and raving of Scottie Pippen, his latest complaints here. He talked about all the Hall of Famers that Jordan played with in the 90s. Now, I'm going to tell you why this is a foolish argument, okay? Everyone and their uncle gets into the Pro Basketball Hall of Fame. They have extremely low standards. You go on the Pro Basketball Hall of Fame website, you look at some of the names in there, and you're just, holy crap, that person's in the Hall of Fame? They'll let anyone in there. Right? Jerry Krause and Phil Jackson and you can say Michael Jordan because he was quasi-GM, although it wasn't quite like it is these days. But the people who were in charge of the Bulls roster continually were able to retool with different parts of it. Right? They need some more outside shooting one year. They get more outside shooting in those days. They needed some more physicality. They get that, more rebounding. They brought in Dennis Rodman. But there's also the other factor here when you talk about all those players in the Hall of Fame. And it's like the Ed Sheeran song, Afterglow, right? There's a lot of people who are, benefiting, coattail riding Michael Jordan and all of that. And championships are supposed to be the last criteria to get in to a Hall of Fame. It's a team award, right? Championship's a team award. It's not an individual award. They don't give a championship to an individual. They give it to a team. But oftentimes what happens is people are hornswoggled who vote for these things, and they're like, well, so-and-so has these numbers, but they have all these championships, so we'll put them in the Hall of Fame. And as for Scottie Pippen and the bad back game versus the Jordan flu game, which we learned in the documentary, was not really the Jordan flu game, but it was really the food poisoning game from some pizzeria. Remember, we talked to one of the people from the pizzeria. We had him on the show during the 2020 shutdown of the sporting world. And as for the bad back game versus the food poisoning game, it's lame for multiple reasons, right? Jordan was the headliner, and it was food poisoning and all that, but he put up 38 points in his food poisoning game and hit the big baskets in that game. The bad back game, Scottie Pippen had 8 points, 3 rebounds, and 4 assists, which is actually better than Willis Reed had in the Willis Reed game. But still, Willis Reed gets way too much credit because of the New York media machine. And it's an example of what we often say, when the legend becomes the fact, you go with the legend, right? The Willis Reed game, people in those days, they wrote the story wrote itself. The guy that got screwed in that was Walt Clyde Frazier, who was amazing for the Knickerbockers the last time they won a championship before modern amenities like color television, cable television, all of the internet, things like that. But the bad back game, Pippen didn't play that well. He was mostly a decoy. And so he played 25 minutes or something like that. He didn't have very much of anything. So you don't get a lot of clout in a modern situation where you have modern media. You don't get a lot of it. Like if the Willis Reed game had happened today, people would not have made as big a deal about it because you have video evidence. You can say, well, that wasn't that impressive.